He thought she was just another black woman he could intimidate. But he had no idea she would walk into court one day and destroy his career. The road was quiet that night. A few cars passed by, headlights shining over the wet pavement. Streetlights flickered, casting long shadows across the highway outside Birmingham, Alabama. It was just past 11, that tired hour when everyone just wants to get home. Lieutenant Commander Renee Dawson had been driving for almost 2 hours. She tapped her fingers on the steering wheel, humming to a soft jazz tune. Dressed in a black sweater and jeans, her hair tied back, she didn't look like anyone special, or so she thought. Then she saw them, flashing red and blue lights in her mirror, coming fast. Her stomach tightened, not from fear, but from weariness. She turned on her signal, pulled over, and parked on the shoulder. Both hands stayed on the wheel. She knew the drill. A white patrol car stopped behind her. The officer took his time getting out. He moved like someone who expected everyone to obey. Heavy boots, one hand on his belt, the other holding a flashlight. It flicked on as he walked up. She glanced at his badge through the mirror. The name read Briggs. License and registration, he said flatly. No greeting. No reason. Renee kept calm, reaching slowly for the glove box. Was I speeding, officer? She asked. He didn't answer right away. He took her papers and looked over the car. Taillights out. That can't be right, she said, frowning. Briggs looked straight at her. Are you arguing with me? A heavy silence filled the air. She could feel it, that moment when power expected her to back down. But she wasn't afraid. I'm just saying my lights were checked recently, she replied evenly. But if there's an issue, I can fix it. Step out of the car, Briggs interrupted. Renee sighed quietly. The road was empty, no witnesses. She tapped the steering wheel once and opened the door. Mind telling me why? Briggs smirked. Because I said so. She stood there, steady and calm. She wasn't looking for a fight, but she wasn't backing down either. Turn around. Hands on the car. For what reason? Briggs stepped closer. Are you resisting? No, Renee said, voice calm. I'm asking a question. He didn't like that. His face tightened. He grabbed his radio and muttered, got a non-compliant driver here. Then shouted, turn around. Her pulse quickened, but her voice stayed firm. Officer, I know my rights. And I know what you're not allowed to do. Briggs glared. You're under arrest, he snapped, reaching for her wrist. Under arrest? For what? For obstructing an officer. Renee exhaled sharply. So that was his excuse. Years of training took over. Calm mind, steady breath. She knew this was a battle she'd fight later. She turned slowly and placed her hands on the roof of her car. The metal felt cold under her palms. Briggs cuffed her tight, way too tight, and pushed her toward his patrol car. You don't know what you're doing, she said quietly. Briggs laughed. Lady, I know exactly what I'm doing. But he didn't. Not even close. Renee sat in the back seat, the hard plastic pressing against her spine. Her wrists burned. She stayed silent, breathing steady. The door slammed behind her. Briggs walked back to his car, talking into his radio. Renee looked at her reflection in the glass. Calm. Focused. But underneath, anger was building. She had faced danger overseas, led missions under fire, handled interrogations. But this was different. This was a man with a badge, drunk on power, thinking he could do whatever he wanted. Minutes passed. 5. 10. The cuffs dug into her wrists. He had done it on purpose. Then the door opened. Briggs slid into the driver's seat, whistling. Well, he said. Briggs pulled his seatbelt across his chest and smirked. Let's take a little ride. Renee didn't reply. He started the car and drove off the shoulder, the red and blue lights flashing behind them, coloring the wet road in streaks of light. You know, Briggs said, most people keep their mouths shut when I tell them to step out. Renee sighed through her nose. And most officers don't arrest people for asking questions. Briggs laughed. Lady, you really think you're somebody, huh? She looked straight at him through the glass. I don't think. I know. That made him pause. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, irritation flashing in his eyes. You military? He asked. She stayed silent. Yeah, I figured, he said. You got that attitude, think you're above the law. Thought I'd back off if I knew, didn't you? Still, she said nothing. Briggs clicked his tongue. Shame. If you'd just kept quiet, we wouldn't be doing this. Renee's jaw clenched. The nerve of him, blaming her for his own actions. The police station came into view. A small gray brick building sat off the road, mostly empty this late at night. Briggs parked near the door, shut off the engine, and turned toward her. "Gotta say," he murmured, "I like it when things are easy." Before she could speak, he got out, slammed his door, and came around to hers. "Let's go," he ordered. Renee stepped out. The cuffs dug into her wrists, still too tight. She lifted her chin and walked calmly as he led her inside. The place smelled like coffee and sweat. A metal bench lined one wall. A steel door led to the cells. Briggs uncuffed her just long enough to get her fingerprints and mugshot. The officers at the desk didn't even look at her, just went through the motions. When it was over, he grabbed her wrist again and pulled her toward the cells. "You think you're smart, huh?" he muttered. Renee looked at him. "I don't have to think." His grip tightened. That stung. "Enjoy your stay," he sneered, shoving her into the cell. Renee caught herself, turned, and watched him lock the door. He smirked, tapped the bars with his fingers, and walked away. She sat down on the cold metal bench. The chill ran through her jeans, grounding her. One night, she thought. That's all it would take. He had no idea who he'd just messed with. The cell was small, 4 walls, one flickering light, and the smell of disinfectant. She'd been in worse places, but anger still burned in her chest. From outside, she heard quiet voices, papers moving, and the clink of a coffee cup. She breathed slowly, steady and calm. Control the breathing. Control the mind. Training she'd learned long ago. Then came footsteps. Heavy ones. She knew that walk, Briggs. He appeared in front of the cell, arms crossed and smirking. "Comfy." She didn't respond. "You know," he said, "if you'd just played along, you wouldn't be in here right now." Renee smiled faintly. "Oh, I'm exactly where I need to be." His smirk faded for a second before he forced it back. "No one's coming to get you tonight," he said. "Guess you'll have plenty of time to think about that attitude." Renee just stared at him, calm and still. Briggs leaned closer. "People like you think the rules don't apply. You think a little confidence gets you out of trouble." She let him talk. Let him feel in control. He had no idea what was coming. Then another officer appeared. Younger, nervous, holding a clipboard. Sergeant," he said softly, "we got a call." Briggs barely looked at him. "I think you need to see this," the young officer added. Briggs frowned, then stepped away. Renee listened closely. Their voices were low, but she caught a few words. "Lawyer, higher up, why she's being held." Briggs's tone changed, sharp, angry. The young officer stammered a reply. Moments later, Briggs stormed back, fists clenched and face red. The smirk was gone. "What the hell did you do?" he shouted. Renee leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "I didn't do anything," she said calmly. Then she tilted her head. "But people talk. And some of us have friends in very high places." Briggs's face darkened. She saw it. The moment he realized he wasn't in control anymore. He turned and walked away, muttering under his breath. Renee exhaled slowly. It wouldn't be long now. When the truth came out, Briggs would regret every choice that led him here. Morning light poured through the courthouse windows, spreading across the polished floor. The air was cold, still. Renee stood by the defense table, calm but focused. No handcuffs, no orange jumpsuit, just a navy blazer and quiet confidence. Beside her, her lawyer Carla flipped through papers without a word. She was sharp, calm, efficient. Renee respected that. The doors opened. Briggs walked in, trying to look confident, but something had changed. His steps were heavy, his eyes uneasy. When Renee looked at him, he turned away. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. Judge Kirkland adjusted his glasses. "Let's begin," he said. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, Lieutenant Commander Renee Dawson was unlawfully detained without probable cause. We also have evidence of misconduct by Sergeant Daniel Briggs." The room filled with whispers. Briggs shifted in his seat. The judge looked at him. "Sergeant Briggs, care to explain?" Briggs cleared his throat. "Your Honor, the defendant was uncooperative during a routine stop." "Uncooperative?" The prosecutor interrupted. "Renee Dawson has a spotless record, a decorated naval officer with no violations. You arrested her over a broken taillight." Briggs froze. No answer. The prosecutor went on. "An internal review shows you've stopped a high number of black drivers in this district." The room buzzed again. Briggs's jaw tightened. The judge frowned. "I don't like what I'm hearing." "She resisted," Briggs muttered. "The body cam says otherwise," the prosecutor said firmly. The judge nodded. "Play the footage." The screen lowered. The video played. Briggs shouting, Renee calm, the cuffs too tight. The room went silent. Judge Kirkland leaned forward. Sergeant Briggs, you violated procedure and made an unlawful arrest. The charges against Lieutenant Commander Dawson are dismissed. The gavel hit the desk hard, and an internal investigation will be opened into your conduct. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Briggs looked stunned. Renee stayed calm, gathering her papers. She looked at him one last time. Their eyes met, and for once, she didn't have to say a word. Briggs stormed out, his footsteps echoing through the hallway. Everyone watched him. Officers, staff, reporters. The man who once held power now looked small. Then a voice called out, Sergeant Briggs. He turned. Chief Baker stood there, arms crossed, eyes cold. Sir, Briggs said quietly. Office. Now, the chief ordered. Briggs followed him inside. The door shut behind them. What the hell were you thinking? Baker demanded. Briggs exhaled. I was doing my job. Your job? The chief said sharply, tossing a file on the desk. That's not what it looks like from here. The body cam footage, the arrest history, and the fact that you didn't even know who you were arresting. Briggs's nostrils flared. What does that have to do with anything? Baker leaned forward. Everything. This wasn't just some random woman, Briggs. She's a high-ranking Navy officer. You think this will just go away? Briggs looked away, jaw tight. She was disrespectful. She questioned me. Baker's voice sharpened. That's not a crime. Briggs shook his head. You don't get it. People like that. Baker cut him off. People like what? Silence. Baker sighed. The DA is reviewing your past 5 years of arrests. You've been flagged for racial profiling. And this department won't go down with you. Briggs's stomach twisted. What does that mean? It means, Baker said, you're suspended. Effective immediately. Internal Affairs is investigating, and if they find what I think they will, your career is over. The words hit Briggs hard. His face burned. This is bull. Don't finish that, Baker snapped. Pack up your desk. And if I were you, I'd get a lawyer. Briggs stood there frozen, realizing for the first time, he wasn't untouchable anymore. Across town, Renee sat in a quiet cafe, stirring her coffee while scrolling through her phone. The story was everywhere. Lieutenant Commander wrongfully arrested. Officer under investigation. She wasn't surprised. She'd known how this would end from the start. Men like Briggs always thought they could get away with it. But not this time. Her phone buzzed. A message from her lawyer. Briggs has been suspended. Possible charges coming. Renee smiled softly. Good, she whispered. She stepped outside, the cool afternoon air brushing against her face. The weight of everything that happened should have been heavy, but it wasn't. She walked tall, steady, unbroken. Her phone rang again. A number she recognized. Lieutenant Commander, a familiar voice greeted. I assume you've seen the news? I have, she replied. And how do you feel? Renee looked at her reflection in a shop window. Calm. Strong. Like I did exactly what I was supposed to do. The captain chuckled softly. The Department of Defense has noticed your case. You might get a call soon. Renee sighed. I'm not looking to be a headline. You already are, he said. And whether you like it or not, what happened to you matters. She knew that was true. This wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had faced what she faced, but didn't have the power to fight back. Renee leaned on a streetlight, watching the traffic pass. This isn't the first time something like this has happened, she said quietly. And it won't be the last. No, the captain replied. But this time, someone's being held accountable. Because you didn't back down. Renee smiled faintly. She hadn't backed down, not during the stop, not in the cell, not in court. And now, she'd won. One more thing, the captain added. The mayor wants to recognize you for how you handled this. Renee smirked. That's ironic. You gonna accept? He asked. I'll think about it, she said, ending the call. Across the street, a mother walked with her little boy, his laughter echoing in the air. Renee watched them, knowing that's who she had fought for. Not just herself, but every black child who deserved to grow up in a world where justice was real. She took a deep breath and walked on. Her steps were firm, her purpose clear. Because this fight wasn't just hers, it never had been. Power unchecked is power abused. And real change begins when people refuse to stay silent. If this story made you think, share it. If it made you angry, talk about it. Because real change starts with real conversations.